Hi there. I'm Laurelann Porter. I'm a shamanic artist. And what I'm going to share with you today is the process that I personally went through in order to heal myself from the inside out. So, wellness from within is something that we all have capacity for. So, this is sort of like the roadmap that I wish I had when I was at my most lost and in my darkest space. And so, I hope that these 12 steps, and it's not, even though I am a workaholic, this is not an AA program. This is just 12 steps that you can take to get your life on track. So, the first one that was really important for me was to just stop the downward spiral and reset. So, if you have anxiety or depression, that downward spiral can be really paralyzing and debilitating. There are a few different ways that I'm aware of that you can stop the downward spiral when you start to feel it happening. There is something called a shamanic decoupling, where we reattune the energy of your system to the heartbeat of the earth. Also, the thing that I looked to when I needed support, and the thing that really nipped mine in the bud, was acupuncture. So I went to my acupuncturist and I told him what was happening, and then he was able to. It was just a way of just getting rid of that sort of and getting me to a place where I could begin to think a little more clearly. Speaking of my acupuncturist, the second step is to assemble your team of healthcare professionals. And I want you to say something out loud to yourself. Say, I have the power to advocate for my own well-being. And the way I found this out was because not all my healthcare providers were on board with Team Laurelann and Team Laurelann's desire for autonomy and for meeting my own goals. So I had to really pick and choose who was going to be someone that I would rely on. And I just absolutely cannot recommend enough that you have more than one person that is your go-to person. If you have a therapist, also get a nutritionist. If you have a naturopath, also get a therapist. If you have a shaman, also get a Reiki master. Whatever you need, make sure that you have your team. In my case, I had a therapist, an acupuncturist, massage therapist who also did energy medicine, and a naturopath. And I actually had to fire my primary care physician and bring on someone who would actually listen to me. So when you find someone who listens and who cares, keep them on your team. Step number 3 is energy work and meditation. So if you're new to it, just start exploring a few things. You can look into crystal healing, Reiki, shamanism. There's so many different ways to work with energy today. Start sensing which ones have a positive effect on your physical body. And there are lots of different kinds of meditations as well. But when we start focusing our energy, when we start allowing ourselves to be a channel for divine light and energy, it can really help make all your other goals and objectives fall right into place. So step number 4 is what I like to call a nutritional reboot. Now, you can do this by yourself, but I definitely recommend you work together with either a nutritionist or a dietitian or a naturopath, someone who is open to natural healing modalities. Someone looks at your whole system, your whole version of yourself, to see what is the fuel you're consuming, what kinds of effects is it having on your body. So I went through the Grow New Body program with Alberto Villoldo. There are lots of ways out there, but I would say definitely start re-examining what is your relationship to food, what is the quality of the fuel that you are ingesting into your body, and how can you make changes to that. So a nutritional reboot is definitely key. Now, step number 5 is to get in touch with your psyche. Now, there's lots of different ways you can do that. I love using dreams and I love using the tarot. And I have actually put together a spread called a dream tarot spread where I actually use dream tending and the tarot together. So the psyche is our sort of our subconscious trying to talk to us usually. And the psyche also can have connections to sort of ancestral and archetypal influences as well. So tell your conscious mind every once in a while to go sit in the corner and allow that subconscious psyche to begin speaking to you. Step number 6 is the one that most people don't want to do, don't know how to do, or don't even realize they need to do, and that is shadow work. Shadow work is tricky because usually it's our ego not wanting to face things. And if we don't face our shadow, then we are doomed to project that onto other people. And so we don't want you projecting your shadow onto your friends and coworkers. We want you to identify your shadow aspects so that you can face them and acknowledge them and accept them in a way that allows you to cultivate deep inner peace. So number 7 is to release the past. Let go of the past. And in that sense, it's important to identify what habits and beliefs have been programmed into your system from the past. What sort of family structures, educational structures, societal structures have kept you in different scriptings, different ways of identifying. So I like to work with a program I call creative grieving, because whether or not you're experiencing the loss of a person, oftentimes there are situations in our past that we just don't know how to let go of. And when we can use creativity to express creatively whatever the emotions are that are going through us, it helps to release it a little more fully and a little more freely. Step number 8 is to honor your ancestors. Honoring our ancestors can be a little bit tricky, especially if we do not currently have a positive relationship for them. For example, if you are in a family situation where you had parents or grandparents who were abusive, who were neglectful, who abandoned anyone or someone we love, this can be very challenging to overcome. So what I like to do as part of this is to engage in a forgiveness practice, forgiving of ourselves, forgiving of other people that we may have inadvertently harmed, asking for forgiveness, forgiving other people who have harmed people we care about, and understanding how to honor the experience of having been influenced by those ancestors, to know what are your gifts underneath. So if we do not honor our ancestors, they have a tendency to find a way to come on in and wreak havoc in our lives. So it's important to have a healthy relationship with your ancestors. And step number 9 is sort of a related step, because sometimes what we understand as generational curses are an unhealthy relationship with the ancestors. So in the case of an actual curse, which is very, very rare, those you can actually work with another energy worker or shaman to unravel those curses. It can be a process that takes a bit of time. Most of the time, what we're calling generational curses are actually just genetic predispositions. And those can be shifted, and those can be broken. So this might come through as if you have a family history of alcoholism, mental illness, heart disease, certain bad luck situations. Those can be cleared with energy medicine. So we want to make sure that we are not repeating any of those habits, and we want to make sure that we are consciously calling in a higher destiny that releases those. Speaking of things to release, step number 10 is the process of releasing childhood trauma and core woundings. Now, step number 10 is probably not something you're going to just do in a weekend. Step number 10 is something that is going to happen in layers. It's going to happen over the course of the journey of your life. But when you can begin that process of unlayering and uncovering and letting go, it can be incredibly valuable to help us when we're stuck in self-defeating patterns of behavior, when we're stuck in addictions, when there is a traumatic event from childhood. Oftentimes what happens is a part of our soul leaves our earthly waking consciousness. And so a really beautiful way to reclaim that part of yourself, to help heal that childhood trauma, is through a soul retrieval. And a soul retrieval is a practice in our shamanic energy medicine where we look through and see what part of the soul has fled, what were the conditions that caused that, what is the soul contract that was generally inadvertently made under duress that needs to be rewritten, and what are the gifts and treasures underneath. Because there's always a lesson and there's always a gift. So releasing those is, I call it step 10. It is sort of a lifelong journey, but it's important nonetheless. Step number 11 is where it starts to get really fun. Step number 11 is to write your own mythology. So if you look at the mythologies that in the Western world we have inherited, things like that you have to pray to an external god rather than relying on the divine aspects of our own self, that's a disempowering mythology. The mythology that we fell from grace from original sin is also a disempowering mythology. The shamans of South America believe that they were never cast out of the garden. They live in the garden and they consider themselves stewards of it. So when you start to understand how story, and especially, big stories, mythic stories, when you start to examine how stories influence your life, then you can start to rewrite your own story. Now, step number 12 is even more fun, and people often forget it. Celebrate. Celebrate your wins, celebrate your successes, celebrate your joy, celebrate your bliss, celebrate your gratitude. The universe and spirit love celebration. They love it when we are feeling blissful and joyful. So celebrate any chance you can. Celebrate the small things. Do it with ceremony, do it with ritual, do it with a party, do it with breaking bread with your loved ones. Do it in some way that brings you joy and gratitude. So, my friends, that is the map, how to heal yourself from the inside out. That's how I did it for myself, and I'm happy to be your guide if you would like someone to help support you on that journey. And if you just want to have a copy of this document that gives you those 12 steps and lets you kind of have some tips on how to get through them, just email me. Reach out to me on social media or email. Laurelann at laurelannporter.com is the best email to reach out to me, and I would be more than happy to share those 12 tips with you and give you other resources to help get you on your journey. Thank you again, and I wish you all the very best.